From MTN News, you're watching Montana This Morning.
A couple of recommendations were made for students in the Bozeman School District on how they would end the rest of this year. But whether those recommendations move forward or not depends on current COVID-19 metrics. I'm Annie Johnson with the full story coming up.
And Republicans in control of the legislature and the governorship have moved strict new anti-abortion laws one step closer to becoming law in Montana. Coming up, learn why opponents say that will lead to a court battle.
The Belgrade Police Department is investing in some new technology designed to reduce the use of force. I'm Gabby Crevitt, and I'll have that full story coming up.
We'll take a look at this in just a second. Much of the country has been seeing some snow lately, but the levels in the Midwest are causing disruptions in travel and coronavirus testing.
Yeah, National Weather Service says snowfall could keep going until late tonight in some areas. Nearly 170 flights have been canceled at Chicago Airport, O'Hare, and Midway. Meanwhile, several virus testing sites shut down yesterday in Nebraska and Iowa. Meteorologists with the National Weather Service say depending on snowfall totals today, this could be a historic storm for the Midwest. And again, for those of you living in Southwest Montana, you're welcome.
Yeah, right.
It could be worse, right?
I think it's already historic just talking about the sheer amounts in one day. They're impressive, 10 to 16 inches over the course of 12 to 15 hours.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, pretty amazing
That's a lot.
stuff. It really is. Temperatures this morning for us are our big complaint. Nothing we can do about it.
Right.
Single digits for most, 15 below in West Yellowstone. We do have reports of fog on Bozeman Pass this morning. Mainly clear skies and cold temperatures. We should see some sunshine today with daytime highs into the mid-20s. Another cold start to the day, not only today but probably tomorrow as well, but we start to see things warm up tomorrow. We'll break it all down for you coming up. Current time is 6:31.
Thank you, Matt. All Bozeman schools will soon return to 5-day-a-week in-person classes.
Last night's vote by the school board to return depended on current metrics, which were presented at that meeting. MTN's Annie Johnson was there and has a recap.
January 27th will be a big day for high school students in the Bozeman School District, and here's why.
We move to support the recommendation to move the high schools to the 4+1 model on January 27th.
With that, we'll take a vote. All in favor? Motion passes 8-0.
Elementary students will continue in person 5 days a week, and middle schoolers will switch to in person 5 days as well on February 1st.
In favor? Motion passes 8-0.
You might be confused as to didn't they already vote on these recommendations at the January 11th meeting? Well, they did approve them, but it was dependent on current metrics, which was revealed this meeting. There is no revisit date for the recommendations, but Trustee Fisher did acknowledge they're going to continue to look at the metrics.
We're going to continue to be asking hard questions. They're going to be hard questions, depending on how these metrics move. And so I will ask that you, even if this is a difficult question, we continue to have those conversations. We continue to look at this.
And like the previous meeting, there were no public comments.
Any public comment?
No hands raised. I think this is our first hearing since March. We haven't had a single public person testifying.
Other meeting items and discussions included several policy changes and reports. By the end of the meeting, there was a little more than 60 people on the Zoom. The next school board meeting is scheduled for February 8th. Reporting in Bozeman, Annie Johnson, MTN News.
Well, thousands of manipulated images are plaguing social media platforms. It's something we're looking at in this week's News Literacy Project.
Yeah, our partners at Newsy fact-checked some posts to help you understand what to watch for to identify false content. Mark Fahey has that story.
It may seem clear to you that this image has been doctored, cut together from images of Barack Obama and David Cameron kissing their spouses. But out on the internet, not everyone will see it that way. After the 2016 election, Facebook created a program to fact-check posts. They started paying organizations like Reuters and PolitiFact to flag content like this. Newsy looked through thousands of flagged posts and saw all sorts of misinformation. Much of it was manipulated content, something that started off real, but was later changed in some way to convey incorrect information. Some of those were doctored photos that were presented as real. For example, fake photos of people hanging out with convicted sex offenders Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein, or altered documents. But many more were photos that weren't doctored, but they weren't what the poster claimed. Like this photo, Dr. Anthony Fauci and Obama supposedly visiting the Wuhan lab in 2015 with Melinda Gates. The photo is real. It comes from the NIH. But that's not Wuhan, it's Maryland. And that's not even Melinda Gates. We saw a lot of examples like this. And don't think a post isn't manipulated just because it has numbers in it. The person who posted this map said it showed the number of missing children by county in Ohio last year. This is real data that really comes from the Ohio Attorney General's office, but it actually shows missing children reports, and that's misleading. There were 20,000 reports in 2018, but less than 2% of those children were still missing when the report was published. Nearly all of them were safely recovered that year.
Oh.
Unfortunately, we can't rely on just Facebook's fact-checking partners to ward off misinformation. Only a small fraction of the millions of posts circulating every day on the platform can be checked. According to the News Literacy Project, consumers should keep an eye on where a piece of information is coming from. Is it a reputable outlet? Are other news organizations reporting similar information? Where did an image or video first appear? Misinformation often plays upon emotional responses, so if a questionable bit of information makes you feel outraged, it may be manipulated content trying to manipulate you. Mark Fahey, Newsy, Washington.
Well, in other news now, the Belgrade Police Department is investing in some new equipment designed to restrain an individual without the use of force.
MTN's Gabby Crevitt tells us the chief says when used properly, it can make a difference.
What sounds like a gunshot is actually some of the latest technology in law enforcement and military equipment. It's called the BolaWrap 100, and the idea is to restrain an individual from a distance without physically injuring them. Belgrade PD began training officers on the BolaWrap earlier this month.
It's a handheld device that deploys an 8-foot Kevlar cord with a barbed pellet at each end, and the intent is to entangle or restrain somebody by grasping onto their clothing and limiting their movement.
The BolaWrap is designed to wrap around the individual's legs or arms, restraining them but not injuring them. So I gave it a try, wearing a taser suit just to make sure my clothes didn't get damaged. Chief of Police E.J. Clark says the equipment itself isn't too complicated. A laser pointer on the device lets you know where the wrap will shoot onto the target. Whoa! Chief Clark says people having a mental health crisis might be a potential situation where the BolaWrap can come in handy.
We don't want to hurt them. We got to get them to help. How do you control them without hurting them? Sometimes that doesn't work out. So this is just another option for that.
The BolaWrap device runs for around $1,200 a piece, and the cartridges around $35. But Chief Clark says this is well worth the investment if it means promoting de-escalation and reduced use of force within the agency.
Concern of police use of force has been an issue nationwide of discussion, and Belgrade is just looking for alternatives to higher levels of use of force, so that this gives us more appropriate intermediary uses of force that we can use as the situation dictates.
You approach, you're going to get in a physical altercation. But if you can lock up their arms, lock up their feet, they can't run away, they can't move their arms. You take them to the ground, you handcuff them, and you got them under control where there's no punches and kicks and things like that. So that's the whole purpose of it.
Reporting in Belgrade, Gabby Crevitt, MTN News.
Well, both pro-life and pro-choice advocates made their stances on the anti-abortion legislation well known in Helena yesterday. MTN's John Riley was there and has this report.
Abortion in Montana passed second reading in the House of Representatives on the same day the annual March for Life rally was held, which seeks to end the practice of abortion. Earlier on Monday, pro-life demonstrators gathered at the state capitol, and a digital rally was held due to COVID restrictions. Pro-life groups praised this year's proposed legislation and are optimistic about furthering more pro-life issues after 16 years of Democratic governors.
We have larger Republican majorities in both the House and Senate than we've had in the past. Plus, we now have a governor that says he is pro-life as well, Governor Gianforte. So we're now hopeful that we're going to have a different outcome than we've had the last 16 years.
The Montana Reproductive Rights Coalition, a pro-choice organization, held a press conference following the House floor session decrying the legislation.
These bills represent the worst kind of government overreach, placing the government between patients and the medical care they deserve. Criminalizing medical professionals, and attempting to scare and intimidate patients with outrageous misinformation.
The Montana Reproductive Rights Coalition have said if the legislation were to become law, it would most likely be challenged in court as unconstitutional. They also noted that similar abortion legislation in other states have been struck down in federal court. The abortion legislation heard on Monday is expected to pass both chambers of the Montana legislature. Party leadership anticipate it will eventually make its way to Governor Gianforte's desk. Both sides of the issue say they're preparing for when that day comes. Reporting in Helena, John Riley, MTN News.
Now, Governor Greg Gianforte scheduled to give his first State of the State address to the Montana legislature. That's coming up on Thursday. You can watch the entire event on the KBZK streaming app for Roku and other devices. Coverage starts at 7. And to learn more about our streaming app, visit kbzk.com/streaming. So there you go.
Streaming app is a wonderful thing.
Oh, it's powerful stuff.
Yes, it is.
Yes. We're going to take a quick break here on Montana this morning. When we come back, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. Is that true? We'll take a look at the latest numbers on that. But first, here's a look at what's coming up at 7 o'clock on CBS this morning.
Good morning. Ahead on CBS this morning, we'll of course have the latest on the severe weather affecting millions all across the country. And this, President Biden optimistic about vaccination availability for everyone this spring, but still an intense debate about whether it will be safe to reopen schools. That's dividing parents and teachers. Also, America is seeing a record number of anti-Semitic incidents. Nazi imagery at the Capitol riot is raising alarms. We'll talk about those affected by that kind of hatred. An award-winning actress, Cicely Tyson, opens up in her new memoir. The 96-year-old talks with Gail about her career and when exactly she realized she had to use her influence to fight for the rights of Black Americans. All that at 7.